As women, we are aged way quicker than men, but just because we are aged doesn't mean we grow, and that's the problem. Now surrounded by women in their 30s and 40s who had in some ways been aged out of attractiveness by men their same age, they felt resentful. They were the most grown they had ever been, becoming peaceful and patient with themselves, but because they had one gray hair in their vagina, men were ready to chop them off in the preferred age section of online dating. Can you believe it? Yali said. She had been dating a man for 3 months, which was incredibly long for her. After a 5-year marriage, she was now officially calling the disaster. I can't believe he said that to me, Diandra, aka me. He goes, if I want to have kids, I gotta date younger because I don't want to have kids right now. So I should date somebody who's 23. Diandra, he's 39, about to turn 40, and I'm 33, Yali said. What, are my eggs scrambled? Does he not think women are fertile at 36, or do we just produce zombies after that? In his head, dating younger gave him the mental permission to delay life milestones that are age appropriate for a 40-year-old man. He should consider getting married and be open to kids, but instead he contemplates it like he's 19 and scared to get the prom queen pregnant before his first year of college. His presumption is if he dates women that are not necessarily the appropriate age for such big life changes, like having a family, he gets to have their youth, beauty, and control of their future together because no woman wants a baby at 20, 30, right? I'm so sorry, I said to Yali. I forgot to tell you that you may have been married to the disaster, but dating has become one. She laughed. I know you really liked him, I said compassionately. My friends were really divided by a sincere fear that men were not growing. Yes, they were aging, but they were not growing. And for women whom have always been materially cut off, for a lot of us, spiritual wealth was the only thing we had accessible. We go to stars, tarots, and self-help guides, all things men make fun of, to help us handle how, despite statistically being more educated, we are not as hired, as paid, and as praised as them. It breaks our hearts, so we check our horoscopes. I don't even think I liked him, she said, with a perplexed honesty. He's just the first guy that stayed with me for longer than 2 weeks. Every time a guy likes me, we barely make it to the second date. And they just do this weird thing of, oh, I'm going to go on a business trip. And then I find them at the coffee shop. Then they're like, oh, we got canceled. This is a problem when you date local. The lies stay in the vicinity. It was true. Men have always done this weird thing of rejecting you by telling you they want more. Sure, let's plan a coffee date. And suddenly he gets 3 cases of SARS. Truthfully, if he had wanted the coffee, he would have shown up. But because he didn't want a coffee date with you, he invented a rare disorder. I once had a guy say he had SIDS. I looked it up to find it was a fatal disease for kids under 1 month old. I let it go because that's what we do. We let things go. Did you walk up to him when you saw him at the coffee shop? I asked. No, responded Yali. I saw him next week at a mutual friend's party, and I asked him how his business trip went, and he said, great. But I knew. She smirked like the smartest person to not announce they were smart. I knew, I swear, I knew. Could be on the epitaph of every woman. I knew he was an asshole. I knew he wasn't on a business trip. I knew that he didn't want to have kids. I knew. We all lived on how much we knew, and that's why we were getting disappointed. That we were not getting to know better. Was it a matter of energy? Did we have to do more sage? How much more did we have to know till we finally knew better? How much more did we have to grow till we finally vibed at a frequency of a man worthy of us? Or was it just that? If you love yourself enough, you realize that alone is the best option. Ugh, gosh. All right, that was the podcast story. Let's discuss. I think that men date younger for multiple reasons, but they're all stupid. The first reason is kind of what Dating Younger, the podcast episode story, was talking about, which is Yali, who, by the way, all these characters are a mixture of real life people. I kind of smashed them together to protect their identities because I'm just so famous. But Yali was telling me that she was going out with this guy for 3 months, which was a really big deal because I kind of hate that Yali would be described as an old school romantic. I think that she just loves love and she watches Bridgerton and she's invested. Like, she's like, this could happen. And I think she has such a beautiful concept of love. And I find it really endangering, especially to women right now. This idea that wanting to be romantic and really wanting an emotional connection before you even give a physical one is like seen as like, you might as well be born in 1958, darling. I think that sucks because like I'm very similar. I may not be as sexually as repressed or kind of tight as her, but I don't think like I'm cooking either because of it. And I really respect her boundaries and her desire to have genuine emotional connection. And I think the reason men, especially, might call her archaic or old school is because she kind of calls out this thing that I've noticed with dating recently, which is this concept of if I don't go Dutch on a meal, or if I just don't give you my body because you paid for that $13 gin and tonic, I'm clearly not liberal enough or free enough, and I'm about to get a red cape and join the Handmaid's Tale. It just sucks, like that concept. And since when did men start making a food association to sex? I buy you dinner, I enter your body. Ugh, big yikes. But I think she's having a really hard time because of things like that. Like, he looked at her when she was telling me, like, I should date 23 because I want to have kids. I just don't want them now. And it's like, if you want them 3 years from now, she'll be 36. Like, she could still have kids. If you really liked her, maybe you could adopt. Like, why are you questioning her fertility? Are you sure about yours? Then the flip side of that is this presumption that 23-year-old women don't want kids, which, by the way, don't. We're not all Nara Smith up in here. But it's also this cruelty, I think, of his idea that I could be in a relationship with a 23-year-old, and if we stay together for 3 to 4 years and she starts wanting to have kids and I still don't, I could walk away. And she's still young. She's like 27, 26. There was such an unemotionalness, like a real emotional disconnect, kind of saying it's so easy to walk away from these objects that I call women when I'm trying to strategize what I want for me. When, like, I want kids, I want a son, but it's like, you're gonna have that with a partner. Don't you want a great partner? Don't you want to be a great partner? And for Yali, she took it really hard because if you've heard prior podcast episodes, she was in a horrible marriage, and it really shook her confidence. And I think the dating scene right now would shake anybody's confidence as a woman. Like, so many of my friends, they are taking celibacy vows or they're going on breaks because dating for women is just totally different than dating for men. I mean, it's obviously more dangerous for us, but it's like really debilitating in terms of mental and emotional health because of things like that, where it's like, she's 33, she might as well be 83. Men really come for your looks. You see it all the time on TikTok, like, where's the low maintenance woman? And it's like, come on now, you're barely maintained. Don't even talk about low or high. And it's something that, like I mentioned, I do find, I think one of the cruxes for Yali in this episode was this thing that men do, I call the banal lie. It's something that my dad did often, and it's something that I'm really trying to unpack on Daddy Recovery, because my dad was a scam artist, but at the same time, and that has made it incredibly difficult for me not to be in my masculine energy, and for me not to kind of witness how many men are kind of running on that duplicitous nature so easily. And I believe in love. I believe there are great men. There are great human beings. And I want to vibe at a high enough healed frequency to tap into them. Like, even if it's just three or four cool, extremely kind people on this earth. I want to find them and I want to hang out. And, in the episode, Yali talks about how she was trying to go out on a coffee date with this guy, and he said, oh, he canceled like last minute, I'm going on a business trip. And then she saw him at the coffee shop because they don't live far from each other. And she does this thing that I've done too, which is I didn't confront him, but I knew. And God knew. And he didn't need to know that I knew, because that's on him for lying. And it's something that always frustrated me with my mother in terms of my father's dynamics. And when we would catch him doing something fraudulent or catch him in a lie, it was like, he knows he's lying. And I'm like, if you live as a pathological liar, one thing that was always so fascinating about my father was I don't think he saw himself as a liar. I think he saw himself as a survivor. And as somebody, like, I will say what I need to say and what I want to say to get what I want. And that doesn't make me a liar. That makes me, like, in his sick mind, that made him a dreamer. And that made him, because for him, desire was truth. Whatever lie you have to say to make that desire a reality, okay. It's why he was a great manifester. And I think for me, and what happened with Yali was, what I have done is this I know. Because you get so exhausted by how much men lie and by the trickiness of their situation. Because it's true. It's like you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings by rejecting them, but making them think there's hope for this mystical, magical future is also cruel. And it's something that I've seen a lot of men do, and it's also known as love bombing, this kind of concept of by the third week of the relationship, third week of dating, I'm going to talk about marriage. And then when you actually start to believe me, I'm going to be like, whoa, she's crazy. Why is she bringing that up again? That's so weird. I said that like joking. And I don't know if what I'm trying to reconcile with is I was raised by a mother who never confronted men despite how much they sabotage her, especially materially, like my dad, and kind of went with this, but I knew, and God knew, and hell will take them. And they actually like ended up doing incredibly well. Like she lost money, she lost mental health, she lost time and energy. Like they're fine. And this idea that karma will attack them when in truth you took on their karma doesn't feel right. But I also am not going to be a maniac and just like run through these streets calling out every liar for not meeting me at the coffee shop, right? So what I'm trying to find is this real balance, because I have found that like keeping all that in and never calling anyone out for wronging me has made me physically, mentally, and emotionally drained and sick for it. But at the same time, it's just this weird kind of when do you call it out, when you don't, because this whole idea that living in this I knew energy is peace, I think that's just resignation and kind of submission to sadness. And even I have found relief in telling a liar he's a liar, even though he usually responds with no, you're lying. There is relief in just saying your truth. Like that could be a good enough reason. And what I found with a lot of women, including myself and Yali, is this idea that, again, I knew, and that's good enough. And I'm like, I don't know. I think you should tell him. Sometimes you really do got to call it a liar, especially because he's going to go out and lie 20 million times more. I don't know. I'm just saying. I saw it on TikTok a while ago, and it stayed with me. This girl was getting absolutely hammered because she was talking about how she's healed herself so much and yet she hasn't found her person. And obviously, because everybody thinks they're healed, they just trashed her because that's what healed people do. And I felt really bad for her because I understood what she was saying, while at the same time, typical Gemini, I think people were trying to call her out, A, because they're absolute haters, but B, because of a mistake I've always made, which is I'm trying to heal how angry I am at myself, because I genuinely thought that by knowing what I don't want, I know what I do want. Like, I know I don't want a mean person, yet I am still learning right now I'm actually starting to learn. I need to define what kindness is, because like mean person, okay, knowing what negatives you don't want doesn't necessarily mean you know what positives. It's like I have a list of deal breakers, but I don't have a list of deal makers. And that's a totally different energy. And I feel like one of my mistakes was, and why I eventually like fell into a deep depression and burnout, was this kind of idea that if I keep on just running from one situation to the next in terms of career and love and health and friendship, just completely running, and rising from these horrible toxic situations with a list of do nots, that the next one is going to be the do. It's going to be the one. It's going to be love, because now I know what I hate. And they were trashing her. And I felt really bad, because now that I'm actually healing, what I have found is that I want to share myself even more. I want that experience of true love more than ever, because I love myself more, I like myself more. And obviously, once you start loving yourself, you realize that love is and should be forever unlimited. So you could always scale upwards. But I think what loving myself has taught me is that I can't be with everybody. I can't share myself with everybody. I can't invest in everybody. But that's only made me want my people more, only made me want my soul tribe and my few, I said it in a previous video, like just the 4 kind people on the planet that are kind to me and I'm kind to them, and we just vibe in this frequency of sweetness. And I understand like what she meant, and I think that that's what Yali and so many women are going through. And you could hear in the episode of Date Younger, just this realization. Like, I started the episode discussing kind of lightly a conversation I was having with my friends of like, it kind of sucks, like past 25, women are always aged quicker than men. And what's so unfair about that is that you almost feel like you have to grow up in 10 seconds. And for a lot of women, we are wiser and grow up way faster than men, because we're treated like as adults by age 9. I spoke about it in a previous episode. The first guy that ever flirted with me, I was 9, and I was like, what? And I feel the difference between aging and growing is obviously an example in the episode of just like, there are men who will look at you at 33 and say, I should date at 23 just in case I want kids in a few years, and just like trading in objects. And for a lot of my friends, they've grown up enough not to tolerate that behavior and really put a mirror of self-reflection to themselves as to why they did. Obviously, there's a patriarchal system we're all living in. But also, what were the insecurities? How did my mom teach me? How did my dad teach me? What, by my nature, was just naturally open to toxicity? And they're really trying to love and pamper themselves. And they're kind of shocked how empowering yourself and becoming powerful and becoming more independent has made men distance themselves. It's almost like they want that codependency. They want that woman to lean on and for her to stand still. And there's a real disappointment, because, again, loving you more makes you even more excited for the experience of true love and somebody that will enjoy and respect you for once. And the irony is that loving yourself more in the dating scene can be the very thing that pushes off a lot of men. And wrapping our brains around that has been really hard, especially because of kind of what I mentioned in the prior episode of like men looking at you like, I'm not going to materially provide for you. Don't look at me for anything material, but please be my comfort blanket. It's like, listen, I'm going to provide for me in every way. You could provide for you in every way, but like, join me. Just be a partner. Like, let's have fun. It does not have to be so heavy and strategic. And I think Yali, again, coming from such a disastrous marriage, is kind of trying to heal that in a way that is taking a little bit harder than everybody, because she really dated a loser. She married a loser, and it went into the dating scene like with her pinky toe in the pool, kind of like there's gonna be better ones, right? And right out the gate, it's just like ooh, 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 ooh. Now, but everybody's as lucky to find a great one immediately. There are men who will date 20 million great women, and for a lot of women, there's just this feeling of I'm lucky if I dated like 3 good guys. And the episode ends with like, should we just all be alone? And being alone is not bad. I think a lot of women are understanding that more than ever. It's actually kind of great. But it's just sad that we might not have this experience of true love just because we decided to love ourselves. There's just something about that that's like, oh man, like now that I really like me, I am so ready to share me. Good luck out there.